We good to
Yep,
go?
let's do this.
All right. So, welcome, folks, to episode 14 of The Hype. It's actually cool. We have Sgares here from Cloud9, who was actually on the original episode of The Hype, episode 1, way back when. So, we're coming full circle, I guess you could say. For those of you who don't know what this show is, basically it's just a show where I interview either pro players or prominent community members. Like, for example, last episode I did Sir Scoots, so I definitely kind of try to add a little bit more variety to it, but it's mostly pro players, and it's mostly just gaining insight into what's going on. I think the original episode I did with Sean, I just dived really deep into the history of him as a player and the history of his team, from Area 51 all the way up to like the present day as Complexity and now of course Cloud9. So I'm not going to focus on any of the history, basically, is what I'm trying to get at in this episode. If you want a rich history about Sgares and all of his teammates, then definitely just check out episode 1 of The Hype with Sean. I also have interviewed every other team member on his team at some point or another. Of course, I interviewed Shroud before he joined your team, but still, all that information's out there in previous episodes of The Hype if you want to learn more about the rest of the roster of Cloud9. Other than that, I'll introduce myself really quick. I'm just Dust Moret. I've been commentating CSGO since Alpha, Season 12 of ESEA. I've also did a lot of Counter-Strike source casting back in the day for ESEA and some other companies. And then I do the show, The Hype, like I've already described. Sean, any quick introduction for yourself?
No, so I'm obviously Sgares from Cloud9. We recently joined the organization probably about 4 weeks ago now. So everyone has had some time to really let that sink in, and we're just really thankful as a team to be on Cloud9. You can see behind me all the Logitech gear. They're treating us pretty goddamn well as the chair that I'm sitting in. So already sent us to a boot camp. I mean, we're just really thankful to be part of this organization, and I can't state that enough.
Well, we'll get there. That's actually going to be one of the first topics. But I actually wanted to kick off where I left off with Semphis, which is before ESEA LAN. So obviously, I'm not going to go too deep into ESEA LAN, but I did just want to point out like how successful you were at it as a team after really not having that good of a prep at all. And basically, I mean, you beat all the European teams that you played against while you were there. It includes the likes of Navi, Virtus Pro, and NIP, of course, was the big one right at the beginning. I mean, what is the formula here? How does this work?
I mean, going into ESA LAN, we were honestly, it was kind of like a shot in the dark. We didn't know if our playstyle would work or not with Corey calling. We were all really lax about it, to be honest. We didn't really care about the results because we were strictly using it as a gauge to see what we were going to do moving forward. Our playstyle with Corey calling is a lot more loose, gives a lot more freedom to players like Jordan and Spencer and Shroud in particular, whereas like Corey and I are a little bit more set in what we do, a little bit more strict flashes and smokes between us two. So we were really kind of interested to see how it would work against the Europeans in particular. And what we learned at ESA LAN is that the Europeans have a really hard time dealing with it. A lot of the rounds will break down for us like into a late game scenario, and our mid game coming as 1.6 players was extremely strong. So when we find ourselves in like 2 versus 3s, 2 versus 4s, and things like that, we're really, what's the word I'm looking for? We're really, I don't want to say good, but because that's lame, but we're really good at manipulating the map and using our inventories to properly kind of sway the rotations of the other team and then use that to benefit us. So that's how it ends up working so well for us. And I think it would work well with any type of strat, but the way that these play out is it leaves us with a lot of our inventories left, which makes clutching 2 versus 3s, 2 versus 4s, 2 versus 5s a lot more possible in the pro scene.
Okay, so you're saying like less set plays and more like flow, like you said, gives you later nades, which helps you clutch.
Yeah.
That's like the basic summary, I guess. So this, I was actually going to ask you about this whole role change for in-game leader anyway, like as a more specific question. You've already said how it's kind of changed the dynamic of the team, but what made you make that type of decision? Were you getting tired of in-game leading? Did you need a break from it? Was it something that you noticed in your play that you felt needed to change? Like, what led you to make the decision, I guess, and try to risk it?
No, so like when Todd was on the team, when he first joined the team and Brax left, I had like an intense motivation to just really buckle down and get like strategically be the best team in the world. So I would spend like hours in servers, like creating new smokes, for, I mean, like Dust 2 and Inferno, like all the maps that we're playing, Train, people can look back to our last season and see that we're doing like pretty different stuff. Like on our executes, we weren't really cookie cutter on our executes at all. But what was happening was we were just like making thousands of mental errors every match. Like that Manajuma match last season where we lost 16-3 on Mirage. It's like if you rewatch that demo, it's like ridiculous some of the ways that we died some of those rounds. So uncharacteristic of us, and especially because we would go through hundreds of scrims and be perfect, but then when it came match time, we would just like crumble. And it was infuriating me. Like, and Corey saw it, and Spencer saw it, and Jordan saw it. And something that we decided to do was to just really strip all of our strats, because we knew at the end of the season that the current or the previous iteration of the lineup wasn't going to last. So why not try something new in the time that we're together, just to see if it works? And it turns out that it really worked well with the team. Some people had a hard time adjusting initially, and yeah, I mean, it turned out to work well. And I was still opping at that point. When I came back into the team after I stepped down for a little bit, I told Corey, since he was already opping, I would prefer it if he stayed opping, because I wanted to work on being like more of a support player and a little bit of an aggressive rifler throughout the map. So that's where we are now, and I'm more of like a secondary op, but on some occasions like CT Dust 2, I do become like more of the primary op.
So, yeah, speaking of which, you probably had the shortest retirement I've ever seen in my life. I guess my question would just be, because this is going into like the roster changes you make after ESEA LAN, which we'll talk about Shroud in a second, but for you, first of all, why did you think about retiring and did retire for a short amount of time, and then what brought you back?
Well, first of all, I never called it a retirement.
Okay.
So that's one thing I really strayed away from when I quit the team, is I never called it a retirement, because it was never meant to be like that. If anything, I was going to join another team. What ended up happening was when Todd left the team, I mean, like the team was going through some really weird times, and I just decided I didn't want to be a part of it. We kind of lost a little bit of the bond we had prior because of the losing and things like that. So I wanted to step down from the team in hopes that maybe I could come back one day. I wasn't really sure if it would even be a possibility. Turns out that when Derek joined the team, Deborn, he didn't really fit well with the guys, I guess, from his point of view, or something of that nature. I'm not really sure of Derek's reasons for quitting the team so quick, and nor is it my role to really talk about that. But when he stepped down, they instantly asked me again, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm ready. If everyone wants to play, and I mean, I know Shroud's really easy to get along with. It seems like it'll all work out, so let's do it. And yeah, here I am to stay.
So my question is like throughout this entire interview so far, you keep kind of highlighting the theme that you wanted to try new things because you knew that the current iteration of the roster wasn't going to last and things like that. Why was this like such a well-known thing, I guess? Like, why did you know for sure that that probably was going to happen? Is it stuff you don't want to talk about? I understand that, but I'm just kind of curious.
It's like kind of like a mixture of both. We were having a really hard time last season getting on for practices, and when we would get on for practices, people would be like AFK, and even if people weren't AFK, we would go into a scrim and no one would know what they were going to do when I was calling strats. So and we'd be sitting in servers for hours, like practicing and like dry running, and it was like stuff would just go right through people's brains, and it was infuriating to like, oh my goodness, I can't say that word, but it was
frustrating.
Yeah, frustrating. There we go. It was frustrating for the players, not even just myself, because say like 2 people learned a strat and then 2 people forgot, and then I'm calling it. I mean, it's not the same 2 people learning it for every strat, so people would get frustrated at the other 2 people for not knowing the strat, and it was a never-ending cycle like that where we were at each other's throats every day. So it made Counter-Strike really unenjoyable for me as a caller, which is kind of describes that.
Right. So my question is like, you know, you say you're here to stay, and you've kind of already described like your role now, like a secondary opper, though primary on some maps. But as far as in-game leading goes, I mean, do you still chime in at times with Semphis on like things, or I guess my point would be is like, do you still have your old strats like in the back of your mind or in your back pocket, like if things aren't panning out and you want to try to throw something that you think will work, or how does that dynamic work between you and Semphis?
Sure. So, I'll a lot of times I'll suggest stuff like before matches more so than during matches because I know as a strat caller if people are constantly chirping in your ear and say you do go with something that someone says and it doesn't work, you're instantly like already at a 5 on the tilt meter. Like you're already kind of tilted the fact that people are suggesting shit that doesn't work. So I try not to do that too much. However, I do have, I would say like at the last tournament, I had a pretty large say on a lot of the pistol rounds we ran. In particular, the T side one against Titan was a direct anti. The T side against Nip on Cobble was. I called CT against Nip on Dust 2, which failed. I don't know, a couple other scenarios too. And then a lot of times I will take over sometimes mid-game. So I like to think that playing under Steno really helped me a lot as far as like my mid-game awareness. So I'll take over a lot during those times when Corey dies and it's just us on the map, and I'll put kind of like use everyone like chess pieces.
Right. So I guess my point is I guess some people would point to iBuyPower and say it's like a dual in-game leader between like Steel and Daze. Is it not that y'all are the same style by any means, you and Semphis, but would you say that like at least it's kind of the same in the case that you have two people kind of inputting into how the team runs, so to speak?
Um, I don't know, because I don't know exactly how awper runs. I know that Steel and Sam are both very strong personalities, so I do find it hard to believe that they would be able to like kind of mesh together and suggest stuff and actually be able to accept it. I know me and Corey, on the other hand, we could probably suggest stuff to each other all the time, and the other would be like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." Um, so I don't know if we're more like them or not. I have no idea how their team works on the inside.
Right. So my last question before I hop in the shroud actually be, you beat all the Europeans at ESL One, but you've always struggled against iBuyPower. Is this some type of mental block, or what is it that you think prevents you from, like, most people say you're the best team in North America because of your international results, but whenever you guys go head to head, it seems like iBuyPower has the advantage nowadays. I mean, of course, you haven't really played them much since you've gotten Shroud, but just in general through ESEA LAN, you kind of got smashed, I guess, in the final. So, what is it? Do you think?
I think that's honestly a total myth. I don't. It kind of upsets me when people say that because 2 seasons ago, when Brax was on the team and we played iBuyPower, we should have won that best of 3. You can go back and watch the demos. We lost some really bad rounds on cash. We lost like 1v3s, 1v2s, and they won 16-13. So that was the one where we should have beaten Titan as well. We had a massive round lead on them in that best of 3. It was like something like we won like 16 plus like 14. We won like 44 rounds or 46 rounds or something like that, and they won like 37, and we lost the best of 3.
Right.
So it was something like really similar that happened against iBuyPower, I thought. And then when Todd joined the team, we played them again at SoCal LAN. We beat them on cash, and we played them twice more in the finals at about 4 a.m. I mean, I don't really want to talk about that tournament, but it was kind of ridiculous as far as like what happened on the inside of our team at the end of that tournament. No one to blame but ourselves, but again, we kind of blew that as well. And then ESEA LAN, the team was pretty much dead. I mean, we were so excited to get second place. We on like who we went through and stuff like that. So I wouldn't even gauge that ESEA LAN either because, I mean, I don't know. They were a much better team than us last ESEA LAN. Right now, I don't know. I can't wait to play them in ESEA League just to like kind of see where we stand against them. As well as like play them at a future LAN event, which I don't know if that's even a possibility because like brackets and things like that, it's hard to actually match up against teams that you want to match up against. But yeah, I think we're about even. Like to be quite frank, I don't think either team is significantly better than the other, and yeah, that's that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted you to touch on it. I mean, I wasn't trying to take an angle on it. I just wanted to see your reaction.
No, I know.
Because, I mean, I think you guys are proven to be the better team based on your international results. I mean, that's clear evidence enough that you're the better team. But head-to-head, it seems like at least they've beaten you recently. I don't know how that makes sense. But
yeah,
let's get back on to what the track that we were kind of taking, though, in regards to the pickup of Shroud. I kind of took out the Deborn part of this interview just because he's not there anymore and he was there for such a short time. I don't think the impact really even made a difference. But when you picked up Shroud, I guess here's how I always thought about Shroud, and you can like correct me if I'm wrong. But with Shroud, everyone knew that he had like this potential and this raw talent, raw aim, but no one really knew how that was going to translate to LAN. And then he played ESEA LAN, and he didn't do particularly well, but he didn't do particularly bad either. It was kind of a neutral event in my opinion. Like he didn't necessarily silence all of his haters, but at the same time he didn't like drop like negative ADR or something crazy like that and look like a complete fool of himself. But after that event then, so you decide, like I would say, kind of rolling the dice on Shroud because you really didn't know how he was going to perform internationally, and he, I guess, lacks LAN experience. So when you picked him up, like, what did you think about these risk factors, and what were your expectations on how things would go with him?
Sure. So, I mean, when I first started playing with Shroud, when I rejoined the team, and even from watching him on his stream, the one thing that I love about how he plays is, and I've said this about Brax, so like I kind of lumped the two together. They almost have this sense of like they hate to die. Like you'll watch them and they won't bait, but they will find out where the opponent is prior to peeking them. And if they don't, they will jiggle peek the shit out of every corner possible until they find out. So that's one thing I loved when I saw him, and that kind of stuff translates really well to LAN. It's not the kind of player that just is running all over the place, mad fragging, hitting one shots, doing this and that, like throwing nades, like just running through smokes. Shroud's not that kind of player. He's the kind of player that is gonna like sit back. He's gonna peek into you when he knows where you are, and he's gonna use his nades really, really efficiently. So that's one thing I really noticed when I started watching him. And then I didn't really get to see much of him at ESA Land, though, to be honest. So I can't really comment on how he played there, but I know that they played Navi and Nip. So I don't really care what his stats say. I didn't expect that lineup to do that well at that LAN, so I wasn't going to hold him to like performing good or bad based on who they played. Let's see. And then did you ask me like anything else?
No.
Like, sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's about it.
I guess so basically my point is like the lack of like LAN experience and things like that didn't really phase you at all in making a decision to like use him as a fifth. Like you guys were confident that it would be okay, I guess is my point, based on how you saw him play.
Yeah, so something I said, that's what I also want to say, I'm sorry. So last season I said during some interview that Shroud would take a season under a good leader, and that was before he joined Manajuma. So I knew after being under Drew for a whole season that he had been in a really strict leading environment, and he learned a lot of things necessary to be good on LAN. So, because I trust Drew as a shot caller to really teach someone how to play CS. So I credit Drew for having Shroud be as ready as he is today, because he was pretty raw when he came in to invite. I knew after a season, though, he'd be ready.
Okay. And so whenever he did join the team, I mean, what were your expectations? Did you feel like he was instantly going to make an impact and a splash in the scene, or did you feel it would take some time for him to mature, or what do you think? Kind of going into ESL One Cologne.
I thought he would have, if we got out of groups, I thought he would have exactly the kind of tournament that he had. So he had some shaky parts in groups, I mean, but they weren't really shaky. He just kind of got, I guess.
The only bad map he had was against Dignitas on Mirage.
Yeah.
And every other map he played excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to have a bad LAN. I just expect him to have kind of shaky halves where he would have like a slow start, and it would have difficulty getting out of that slow start because it would mentally be in his head. However, I know if we were to play a deep match that he would be really fine towards the end, and he would definitely be able to flip a switch and turn it around just because he has all the knowledge and the aim to be able to do that. So as long as he's not in his head, I knew he'd have a pretty good LAN, and turns out he had an amazing one.
Yeah, for sure. So before we go into ESL One Cologne, obviously this is at the point in time where you guys got the Cloud9 sponsorship, which you kind of mentioned in your introduction earlier already. But I guess, did you want to touch on that anymore? Like, how did it come to be? You know, things like that.
How did it come to be? Is that what the question was? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. So when we were in Katowice for the second major, we were actually kind of chatting with Loda's girlfriend, Kelly Milkies, and she introduced Semphis and I to Jack, who's the owner of Cloud9. And obviously, we weren't talking at all about kind of switching teams because we were still so deep into the complexity contract. We had another several months left. But it kind of laid down the foundation of meeting Jack, finding out he does have an interest in CSGO. So as our complexity contracts were starting to expire, we had an outlet and we were looking to see kind of if Jack was still interested. And turns out he was. We had some other offers as well from some of the LOL orgs. But based on reputation, we know that Jack is probably runs one of the best organizations as far as for the players. So that played a huge part in us choosing Cloud9.
Right. So, I mean, some people have speculated that you guys weren't satisfied with Cole because of like travel budget and stickers, and there's been all kinds of articles written about all that stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, did it just boil down to Cloud9 having a better offer, or was the culture there just better, do you think?
I mean, I don't really want to like throw Cole under the bus. I mean, they did everything they said they would do, and probably more. I mean, in our contracts, it only said 2 international events and domestic events too, whatever ones we wanted to domestically. I mean, they lived up to their end of the bargain. So it's more of the fact that Cloud9 had an amazing offer that we kind of couldn't refuse.
Right. So based on what you're telling me, do you think that it's very likely that you'll see some more like LOL organizations and stuff eventually step into the CS:GO field more often than Cloud9 kind of leading the way?
I think so, yeah. We definitely know that. I know one more off the top of my head that is interested in the CSGO scene. The problem is I don't know who they would pick up. Maybe those ex-LGB guys, or I heard some top teams aren't really satisfied with their organizations, but I don't really want to kind of throw them under the bus for that.
Fair enough, man. I don't want to like pry too much and cause too
Yeah.
much drama. We already have enough drama in the CS:GO scene nowadays. I don't think we need to lop any more into it. So when you went into ESL One, there's also been kind of talks about the preparations beforehand, like your boot camp and stuff like that. And you've already kind of talked about it. And there was like a video of you guys doing a tour of where you were at and stuff. I guess the question I want to ask though that maybe wasn't necessarily asked in other interviews was like how confident were you going into the event after the preparation that you had here in the States and then your boot camp combined?
Ooh, so after the boot camp, we were kind of walking on like pins and needles. We weren't really sure what to expect, but we were pretty confident because we were playing around like 100 FPS, and most of us were on 60 hertz, like such as myself. And in addition to that, we weren't playing on our resolutions because in order to get over 100 FPS, we all had to use 8x6 or 1024. So we played like a week or two, I guess it was like about a week on 1024, 8x6, wherein in reality, we're all 69 players at this point. 4 of us use 1920, and then I think Jordan is using the lowest res on 69, 12 something, whatever it is.
20 by 720.
Yeah, so that's the one Jordan's been using for a while now. So we didn't really, we were unsure whether we wanted to all switch to 1920 when we plugged and played. So we said we'd play it by ear, and when we sat down, we had about an hour to warm up, and we all just warmed up on 1920, and we just did it YOLO. So
I heard you all changed your sensitivities way higher too recently.
I did specifically. So after ESEA LAN, I jacked up my sense really big because I decided I was gonna rifle more. So lately, I've been using like 3.6 to like 3.8 online,
God.
which
When
is
it
like
used to be
insane.
like 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's quite a drastic change for me. Spencer has always used a
Right.
really high sense, like around like 4. Jordan, I think, is in the 2s. Even though
Yeah.
it looks like he moves really fast, he's actually in the 2s. And I
Mhm.
think Corey is really dynamic with the sense. He can play on 2, he can play on like 4. I don't even know what he's at right now. I know lately he was at like 2.5.
You guys,
something like-
what makes you make these decisions to make these types of changes? Like you said, for you, it was because you switched more to a rifling role, so you wanted to have a higher sense. But I mean, is it like a mental game with yourself? Like, oh, I play better, like if I raise it just a little bit, like or something. Like I don't know. I've always been curious, like how, because people always ask. It's like the most asked question in every pro stream, right? It's like, what sins do you play? What mouse are you using? What DPI are you at? And people are always wondering, and you guys always fluctuate from time to time. And so I was just curious, like, what is the mental process that gears you towards making a change, I guess, if that makes any kind of sense?
I kind of just was DMing until a point where my sprays were more on point and I was able to like whip around and land exactly on people. And I actually have a map on like my workshop, and before I play now, I just go in it and I like aim in between players. I'll get the name of it in a second because people are probably gonna ask. But I'll just go in this map, and I did it at the last major, and I'll just whip to people like across the map. Like I'll just whip just to like get my sensitivity really on point. Let me get the name of it. It's QK aim training or something like that. And you're like in the middle of the map, and there's like bots like all around you, and I'll just like go in between them, and I'll whip to the close one, I'll whip to the far one, I'll whip to the one above me, and I'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it until I'm consistently hitting the players. So that's something I do to make sure my sense is perfect. I know Spencer does bot DM a lot. Corey just normal DMs a lot. Jordan just kind of is a god and can do whatever he wants. And Shroud, I think, is pretty consistent as far as his settings go.
Yeah, he's never changed it from what I understand, like ever. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty nuts. So let's talk about ESL One now, right? So I'm not going to go super in depth about every single match that happened throughout the entire tournament, but I did just want to kind of gloss over the tournament, but of course focus more on your games, right? Because that's what this interview is about. But I guess just looking at the tournament, like maybe just kind of getting like picking your brain about what your expectations and predictions kind of were going through. So of course, Group A was Epsilon, Nip, Hellraisers, and Game God Wolf from India. So I guess most people kind of discredited Wolf right off the bat and figured that they weren't going to advance, which wound up being the case. Though I would say their game against Nip on D2 is actually kind of interesting. They started off like really well against Nip, but then just kind of crumbled like after the first 6 rounds or something like that. I think they were up like 5-1 at one point in the first half, and it was an interesting game. So like props to them for like coming out strong, but they just couldn't close. But I guess the most interesting thing about Group A was the Hellraisers Epsilon game, right? Like Epsilon absolutely crushed Hellraisers on Inferno like 16-1, I think it was. So I guess my question would just be to you is, were you surprised that Hellraisers didn't advance and it was Epsilon and Nip instead? I guess most people thought Nip would advance, but what did you think about that whole deal?
I don't know, because a lot of European teams say that Hellraisers is like really insane and they have a really hard time playing them. But when we boot camped against Hellraisers, they were one of the few top teams that we actually played when we were on our setups. And we were actually hanging pretty well for having such horrible conditions against them. We didn't play Epsilon, although I know that Epsilon has some kind of weird mental edge over HR. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, you wouldn't think that Epsilon roster would be able to beat HR, but they just do, and they smash them when they do too. It's like not even close.
Is it just the shocks factor? Is that it?
I guess and I think it seems like honestly like the Hellraisers team has a really hard time playing against good awpers, and I think that helps out the Epsilon squad a lot. Like I can't really say how much it does, but I know that like when Guardian plays Hellraisers and now FXIO and who else like really tears them apart? Like Chris J. When Chris J plays those Hellraisers guys, he always racks up like 30 frags, I feel like. So I just feel like those guys in general, based on how dry they take areas, have a hard time against awpers. So it wasn't a very good matchup for them, in my opinion.
Gotcha. So with that, I mean, Nip and Epsilon were the two that advanced. So then we move on to Group B. This is a group that I think most people kind of predicted pretty well in the sense that LDLC and Navi advance. That's probably the two teams that most people picked to advance. I mean, I guess there was kind of a chance that London Conspiracy was going to maybe like kind of be that dark horse team to worry about just based on how they had been performing prior to the event. And then of course Copenhagen Wolves, you can't count them out completely with the roster that they have. But nonetheless, I mean, it was LDLC and Navi who advanced, though Navi did, I guess, struggle a little bit in the sense that, I mean, they only won an overtime against Copenhagen Wolves to advance. I mean, it was kind of close in that regard. Basically, my point is Group B, did it surprise you at all who came out of it at the end of the day?
Honestly, I didn't know what to expect from LDLC because they had a couple, I guess, shaky tournaments. And I thought Navi would be able to top the group. Turns out Navi almost didn't even advance, like you said. I expected LDLC to probably take the second seed and Navi to take the first, just because I wasn't too impressed with the way that LDLC won. What was that, DreamHack Valencia or something like that? They played really close maps like all the time. I remember they dropped a map to like a Spanish team or something like that. They dropped a map to like the Planet Key guys from Germany. They were just dropping maps to people that they probably shouldn't have. So I didn't really know what to expect from them going to this major. However, the word on the European streets was that they were insane on Cobble and Overpass. So I knew that they would have a large advantage going into those two maps. Turns out it kind of helped them out, I guess, in the veto system.
Right on. So now we're going to talk about Group C, which of course had your North American rival iBuyPower poised in it. They also had in their group Fnatic, Virtus.pro, and DAT. Now, I think most people probably did predict Fnatic and Virtus.pro to advance out this group, though I think a lot of North American fans and maybe some other people kind of expected that iBuyPower at least had a shot to make it out of the group. However, they went up against Fnatic on Cobblestone and lost 16-7. They then replayed Cobblestone immediately afterwards against DAT and won. And then they got to play Virtus Cash, which in my mind, and I think even in their mind, this was probably the best scenario they could have gotten if they were going to play VP head-to-head, was Cash, and that they had beat them on at ESEA LAN in the series that they beat them. Thoughts? Why is iBuyPower still unable to make it out of group play? I mean, any comments from your end on that?
I guess, well, it turns out that Fnatic was just better. I mean, Fnatic was in really good shape at that LAN, and I knew that from our one scrim we had against them on Overpass, which was our one time that we played Overpass. However, I could tell that they were pretty good. Even though we never played the map before, they were prepared as shit on it, and I knew iBuyPower was going to have a really hard time in that match. I did think that iBuyPower was going to be able to beat Virtus.pro and Cash, because I know that they have a pretty strong Cash. I don't know, they just kind of shit the bed. They let things happen that probably shouldn't have happened, like that Snacks push through B when he's like behind them. It's like in a couple clips now. I don't know what happened. From what I've heard is, because I questioned iBuyPower about it because I saw Steel sitting in the middle. However, according to the players, Steel wasn't even calling that match. It was Dazed. So I was like, what happened?
Mind games, man.
I guess what happened was like Steel normally calls on Cash, but going into the map, he was like, I don't want to call or something. I don't even know. Like I don't know what happened on Virtus.pro, but honestly, I thought they would take Cash because they are extremely strong on Cash. Although I know Virtus.pro is 2, so I don't know. I don't know what happened that map, but I thought they would win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think no one's surprised that Virtus.pro advanced. In fact, I kind of thought Virtus.pro would beat whoever in the upper bracket and move on first, but they wound up getting beat by Fnatic and OT, but it really kind of boils down to like map and veto system stuff we'll talk about in a second, by the way, so we can maybe get your opinion on those things. But so yeah, but whenever you look at the head-to-head VP iBuyPower on Cash, oh yeah, I love that stuff, dude. That is,
Isn't it so good?
It's so good. And it's like, not, I guess it's like theoretically not that unhealthy for you in comparison to like normal soda and stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't
pretty
think it
great.
has any sugars in it.
It's supposed to be 0 calories or something like that as well. So
yeah, I don't know.
Whatever. Random impromptu discussion of health drinks. There you go. Right here. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, like looking at it objectively and not as a North American fan, I would have to say that Group C didn't surprise me in who advanced. But I think what surprised me is how bad iBuyPower lost to Virtus.pro on Cash. It would maybe be like the more finite observation. So yeah, I mean, I guess my last question before we move on from this, because this isn't the iBuyPower show, this is the Cloud9 Sgares show. What do you think it's gonna take, if anything, can to, I guess, fix iBuyPower in a sense that get them to an international contending like position when it comes to these majors overseas?
I don't know, man. Like at these last 2 majors, I thought they were ready. Like I really did, based on like how they play against us and like what I see from them. They're pretty sound tactically, I guess, when they play like in America. But I think the problem is like they play so default, and that's something I've noticed that like the Europeans just slaughter. So like if the Europeans can read what you're doing, like, and I kind of think iBuyPower has always had a little bit of struggles on their T sides, even in America. When they're playing like the top teams in America, obviously they demolish like the mid to lower tier teams even on their T sides, just because they give their players a little bit of freedom, and it's like default, and then they run and execute, or it's default and then they run and execute and then they have a lurker and then they go back to the other side. So it's like it's really standard what they do, but their aim allows them to just demolish most of the American teams. But the European teams can read it really well, and they'll set up crossfires, and they'll really make awper work for like choke points, and more so than the Americans. And what I mean by like work for the choke points is if awper has like swag going through the hull solo, the European teams recognize that tendency like by watching one demo, and they'll like do like a crossfire in the halls, and awper's strat is kind of crumbling because swag's going through the halls solo and he's in a crossfire. Um, just kind of like a random instance. But I don't think he goes solo halls. I think the guy makes boiler jump most of the time. But Europeans definitely have an easier time with their T sides than our T sides, and our T sides are pretty hard to read. That's why, because literally we run like when we play Europeans, we run strats a lot of the time. It's just a lot of spawn. And then like late in the half or even early in the half, we'll switch it up and run like defaults. It kind of depends on how we're feeling and how the team's going to adapt. But we don't run solely defaults like I feel like awper does.
Right. So moving on then to Group D, which is of course your group. In that group, it was yourself, Dignitas, Titan, Vox, Eminor. So in the first matchup was Dignitas versus Vox, and I think most people kind of expected Dignitas to win that in advance. There was like really no surprise there, in the sense that that was probably what most people predicted anyway. And Dignitas has been playing really strong and have always kind of proven to be in that top 4 or top 8 teams in the world ranking, so to speak. So that, no surprise. But then we move on to your match versus Titan, which is kind of taking place simultaneously. And since there was no lower bracket in this tournament, my theory is that since you guys are lower bracket warriors, you just have to make it hard on yourselves within the matches that you play in the group since you don't get a lower bracket. Everybody knows this is true. You've like traveled through the lower bracket almost every tournament you've gone through that's had one, and you've always like come out pretty well in the end. But in this event, obviously, it's a single elimination bracket, so you got to make it tough for yourself in groups, right? So you go up against Titan, and obviously this is on Dust 2, and obviously the story of Titan has kind of been a downward trajectory up until G3, where they kind of like seemed like they were making their comeback up, so to speak, if that makes sense. Like they've made roster changes, they didn't make it out of groups last major. They wound up not making out of groups in this one either. So it was always been the story of like a downward trend for Titan, right? But G3, that seemed like they hinted at, hey, maybe we're kind of, you know, re-emerging, so to speak. But then you go up against them, and really, like, looking at it, you probably should have lost so many different times. But in double overtime, you pull it off and win 22-18. So now I've already had my chatter about it, but do you maybe want to kind of break this match down on how you think it went and how you think it ended the way that it did?
Yeah, so it started off, I guess we won the opening pistol, and then the second round, I had a really good idea of what they were going to do in their second round because I just got done watching a bunch of Titan demos. Like throughout the whole boot camp, I was watching Titan demos, and I was really studying how they played. And I mean, obviously I didn't know what map we could play on because it was just that random Valve tournament, but I had a good idea of the 3 maps it could have been. And I guess from watching their Dust 2, I knew they would do this 3-2 split where they send like 3 guys long, 2 guys cat. And awper dealt with it in the exact same way that we dealt with it, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do exactly what awper did to them at G3 because awper won the pistol and then they won the second round, and they won the second round cleanly. Well, when they rushed long versus us, I was like, okay, instantly flex back. We'll play like kind of almost like a flex position on A where we're like in the middle of long and cat, and we'll just use our range to just kill them all. So Shroud backed off the game helper. I went to like the spawn ramp, and Jordan went sight. Well, what ended up happening was Jordan's in-ear fell out of his ear or something like that, and he forgot that they could come up cat, and I think he was messing with his in-ear while 2 guys ran off cat, and they just basically slaughtered me and Corey in spawn. Shroud got singled off from long, Jordan died side. It was like we lost the round pretty cleanly. Like it was like we didn't even exist. Like they were just dry running a strat on us pretty much. So from there on, it went really bad. Honestly, they just had our money so low, like the whole entire half. They had a really good mid to B split that we even knew about. But I guess they throw like a million flashes into the spawn smoke, and it basically nulls like Corey's spots and it nullifies Jordan's spots, and it's just really hard to play around mid when they're doing that mid B split. You have to like kind of know when to turn from the flashes. So that was really hard to stop, and I think if we could have played them again, we probably would have won a lot more rounds on our CT side. But yeah, going into T side, I called like a direct anti-strat because I knew they'd play like 4 towards the A side. I was like, if we see one guy cross, then I'm going to assume that they're doing that same strat that they used on awper because I've already seen strats that they used on awper, so I know they're not changing much. Sure enough, I saw like one guy cross. It was Scream. We knew 4 guys were towards A. MBK was cat solo. 3 guys were top A. I've even showed this on my stream, I think, the last time I was playing. But yeah, basically, I just wanted us to walk directly out mid from the center of middle and just walk into B. And we just literally walked into B and flanked Scream on the side of the head, took the site. And from then on out, we literally just won huge rounds, like in B, like 2v4s, 2v5s with like Corey, Hiko, and I think like Shroud won like a big round too once.
He did. He won like a really.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a 1v4 or anything, but he killed 4 people on a B retake, and it was pretty nuts. I think the one that the round that most people recall from this is it might have been the very last round actually that won it for you. Was when it was like 2v4 or 2v5 bomb down in B, and they all just try to run through window, and like you guys,
yeah.
just, it's like a blender. Like it's just like running through a blender.
Yeah,
And,
that was like Hiko and Semphis, and
yeah.
I think like Semphis was like bomb box and Hiko was like closet, and
Mhm.
Spencer just like sprayed like 3 guys coming through the window. It was like insane. So that was awesome.
So in conclusion, I mean, does it boil down to more of like just you guys having an excellent T side, or Titan mistakes are a balance of the two? Do you think that caused you to wind up winning this game?
I think both teams made some mistakes. I think Titan probably made more mistakes than us in that match, and it definitely cost them because they should have won after that first half. They definitely should have won, and they made a lot of mistakes as far as like the retakes on B. So I'd put it more on them making mistakes based on how that panned out in the end.
Right. So this puts you up against now Dignitas on Mirage in the upper bracket for a chance at the #1 seed coming out. You guys have never played each other before, I don't think, right? Up until this point, never. Like y'all have never met at any international event. I don't think.
No, we haven't. But however, we did boot camp against them a lot when we were in Sweden, practicing for DreamHack Winter. I think we played them on like something like 8 maps. So like we really had an idea of how they play. In addition to that, like I said, I like watched a lot of their demos too throughout the boot
Okay.
camp. So we had an idea of how they play. But with that being said, I don't think any American team has ever beaten a European team on Mirage in CS:GO. So pretty sure.
I think you're 100% right on that, and obviously everyone hypes up how good Dignitas is on Mirage. I mean, I guess Virtus Pro also gets like a nod as being one of the best Mirage teams, and Dignitas is kind of right there with them. Also, everyone always credits Dignitas really solid CT sides and things of that nature. And once again, you find yourself in a game where crazy individual plays happen, mistakes from Dignitas are huge, miscommunications are bad. I mean, once again, a match it looks like that you guys should probably lose, and you still wind up winning at 16-14. It's kind of a similar story to the Titan game in reality, except it just didn't take an overtime to get it done this time around. What are your thoughts on this game and how it went?
It was definitely a pretty bizarre game in the fact that we lost both pistols but won both second rounds in both halves.
That scout,
So that
though.
is definitely pretty weird. Yeah, the scout. So the scout was actually kind of funny because I wanted to pick mid in the beginning, and he like beat me out mid and like started like hitting me up in the side, I think, if I remember correctly. But at the start of the round, Jordan was like, "You should just go jump scout B," and I was like, "Why would I just spawn and go jump scout B?" But after I got hit like really low, like to like 30, I was like, might as well jump scout B now, because I was at like 30 health. So to be honest, it was kind of Jordan's idea in the beginning of the round. But yeah, that was pretty sick. With that being said, we started up like 5-1 because we won that second round, and then we had some really bad mic problems. Like Corey and I's mic would literally just not work like throughout random stretches, and we couldn't figure out why it was happening, and we still don't know why it was happening. But like we would be perfectly fine one sentence, we'd talk again, and it would just be nothing. And one of the rounds I had like a top spawn to pick mid, which I love doing. So like if I have like a really top spawn on T-Side Mirage, I'll like buy an op and I'll like pick the window. And I asked Corey, I was like, "Corey, is it okay if I op pick mid?" I don't even know why I asked him. He usually says yes to everything, but he didn't respond because his mic wasn't working. But he did respond. He was like, yeah, pick window, pick window, pick window. And I just was like, all right, whatever. He's not responding. He didn't hear me. I'll just buy an AK and I'll just do my part. But then it turns out Jordan was like, he is telling yes, he's saying yes. And then I ended up with an AK. He's like, whatever, just run in the connector. And that kind of shit like always backfires on Americans when you continue with a strat despite not having the right kind of equipment. And I think it was 5-1 at that point when that happened, and it ended 10-5. So it was a tough end to the half, I'm not going to lie. Well, we lost 10 rounds straight, or 9 rounds straight, sorry.
Was there any other factors you think contributed to you guys like giving up such a big lead and losing the half in such a bad fashion, I guess you could say?
So it happened on that round, and it happened on another round later on, which I can't even recall. But I think we should have taken it a little bit slower against them and really taken mid control. We ended up playing like hyper aggressive when we were up 5-1, and they just dealt with the rushes and stuff really well. Like they were so on point at B. I think one of the rounds we were like, all right, let's just delay hit B because AZ's playing close cat every round. So we head towards B. We kill the guy upper B, and it turns out AZ's hiding it in the van, like behind the van, which is like was so uncharacteristic of him throughout the whole half. So I kind of chalked it up to he probably heard the guys creeping up because they ran too far. I have really no idea. I haven't watched it to really find out, but I thought it was really weird he was at the van that round. But yeah, that was kind of lame. And then from there, I mean, we probably lost a couple of ecos that we had to save on, and it's just kind of snowballed. All right.
So then going to the second half, you already mentioned that you lost pistol again, and so that was now bringing you down to 11-5. So what happens from this point to like get you back into the game? Like, let's not even talk about winning, just like getting back into the game, because at this point, most people would say, unless like you CZ them out, which does happen a lot nowadays, that they should be up, 13-5 before it's all said and done. But in reality, that's not what happened. So how did you turn it around and get back in the game in the second half?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously the eco round helped a lot. Without that second round, we probably don't have enough rounds to really be able to grind out that half. When we won the second round, we knew they were kind of low on money, so we obviously get a couple more rounds there because they're ecoing. And then from there, I want to say they tried like a bunch of A executes, and we like really shut them down on their A execs, other than that last round when Dupree ran through the smoke and it was me and Spencer. But in the middle of the half, like somewhere in the middle, they headed towards A, and I killed one, and I like hit up another guy that came out the ramp, and my death cam just stayed on him for so long. I felt like my death cam lasted like 10 seconds for that kill. And I saw him just sit there, and then he ran back towards the ramp, which like was like, wait, it's a fake. But Spencer was already deep in CT spawn, and the T's were already in the B site. The bomb was planted, and he heard a guy to the left of the kitchen. He jumped out the window, ignored the guy to the left of the kitchen, ran up on the planter and killed him, and then like killed another guy, and we won that round. And
that was an incredible round, yeah.
I still don't know how they didn't hear him jump out the window, especially because he heard the other guy. So if he could hear the other guy could hear him, which means why is he surprising the planter? That I don't know how we won that round. That was insane, but that definitely kept us in it. I think that round is probably the most overlooked round of the half, but the most important round of the half.
Right, because the most looked at round of the half is when Dupree gets a hat trick, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Hiko still clutches around you win the game 16-14. That's the round that everyone remembers. But I think you're absolutely right, and I've even said this to some people. I was like, I think the biggest round was the retake on B, where Hiko comes out of nowhere and gets 2 frags, and all of a sudden, they're retaking a site they should have no business retaking at that point. And I think that was probably the round that got you back into the game. I think it's like probably the biggest point. But yeah, so to talk about that round, Hiko in the clutch, you defusing it. I mean, how does this happen, man? Is it just Hiko, the Hiko factor, just nuts at clutching? Like, I don't know what else to chalk it up to. He does this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he just really understands, I think, how players think. That's like the best way to probably describe him in those clutch situations is he's really patient and methodical with his plays when he needs to be. But like that B round on Mirage, he knew if he waited in the kitchen, the round was over. So he had to jump out immediately and make a play. And I think that's just his awareness in the game, his hours in the game showing, and really, I guess, his dedication at being the best in that scenario. So yeah, it definitely shines and it definitely shows.
So once again, like, should we chalk up this match as like just crazy individual efforts and smart play from you guys and good reactions, or Dignitas making buttloads of mistakes, like for example Dupree getting a hat trick and then still giving up the round in the end to Hiko clutching? Or I mean, is it a balance, a fine line between the two? Because I mean, I guess like a lot of criticism that's come out from some of the analysts out there has been more of like Cloud9 literally got out of groups due to mistakes Titan and Dignitas made rather than Cloud9. I mean, people still praised you too. Don't get me wrong. Like it wasn't like they all said it was 100% mistakes from the other team that allowed Cloud9 to win. They still credited your good play and things like that. So I'm not putting words in their mouth or anything. But I guess my point is, at the end of the day, like, I mean, is it just the chips fall as they may? It's Counter-Strike. This is what happens, or how do you like conclude it? I guess.
I think our Dignitas match was more us winning as opposed to the Titan match, where I think it was more Titan losing. And the reason being for that is I can think of like 2 rounds on the top of my head where Dignitas probably shouldn't have won and they won. So it goes both ways. I don't think they should have even been in that round where Dupree ran through a smoke and caught 3 of our guys off guard. I think that play is more lucky than the fact that we won 2 versus 4 with me defusing, knowing a guy's in window. So if that guy in window is literally out of the play, like he can't make a play to win the round, the guy in the ramp is the only guy that even matters in that situation. So it's 2v2, but it's really 2v1 because it's Spencer versus the guy on ramp and me defusing. So I think they kind of lost that match as opposed to like us throwing it or them throwing it or something like that. One round we like had like a 4v2 in B and we couldn't retake. So I mean they won some rounds too in the same exact fashion. So I don't know. And I also think they were lucky to kind of get as many rounds as they did CT side. They got 9 in a row. I mean I think if you play out that half from 5-1 10 times that they don't win 9 straight ever again. So I think they, with that being said, I think they're probably better than Titan. I just think that we were in a better situation that match.
Right. So then coming out of group play, you find yourself in a situation where, lo and behold, you have to play NIP first, because this has never happened before, right? Like, you never have to play NIP first. Like, that's not even a thing. No, seriously, you guys play NIP first in almost every single tournament I've ever seen. You guys play it. So it's just one of those things, right? So vetoes happen. It's not looking good because you got to play NIP on Nuke. But lo and behold, you beat them 16-8 on Nuke. Like, how does this happen in your world? So, walk us through this game.
Yeah. So the night before, we knew exactly how the veto would pan out. We knew we had to eliminate overpass. We had no choice. We did debate for a split second whether we want to eliminate Nuke and leave both the customs in, but that's like a pretty big BDP in my opinion. So we decided not to do it. We knew Nip would pick Nuke. We knew we would pick Dust 2.
So what was your other veto besides Overpass?
We only get one. You only get one in the
plus I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, so that was kind of lame, the fact that we only got one veto and we had to eliminate Overpass. We knew they'd pick Nuke. They probably knew we would pick Dust 2, and they did know we would pick Dust 2 because Pito was sitting there like watching all of our demos in the area, and I saw him watching our Dust 2 demos. So they knew we were playing Dust 2 ahead of time, and then we were just praying that the third map wouldn't be Cobble. Like, it was a 1 in 3 shot. We knew that it had to be in there. We're just praying that it wouldn't be Cobble, and of course it was Cobble. Like, of course. It couldn't have gone any other way. So...
like, how many times was Cobble selected in this randomization of 3 maps in this tournament? Like, a lot, I feel like.
I actually saw the breakdown, though. It felt like it was, but I saw the breakdown, and it really wasn't that absurd.
Maybe it was just because the matches I watched always seemed to go that way. Like, both iBuyPower matches, your match on NIP. Like, yeah. So I guess that's my fault for seeing it that way. But anyway.
I felt that way, too, though. I think everyone at the tournament did. Like, I saw
NA teams felt that way, that's for sure.
Yeah. I saw the GIF of, like, the random map choice, and it was just like overpass Cobble, and I just like I died when I was in the tournament area and I saw that. I was like, that's so true.
But anyway, so walk us through this. Nuke was the first map, of course. How did you guys conquer the team of Nuke on Nuke?
Yeah, I mean, it started off kind of bad actually, because I mean, in my opinion, we could have won way bigger than we did because we threw the CT pistol. I think we got like 2 or 3 opening picks, and then they won like Get Right and Force won like a 2v4 or 2v5 or something like that. And I remember seeing at the end of the first round that like Get Right had 3 kills and Forrest had 2, and I was like, shit. Get Right's gonna actually have a good best of 3 against us because like he was kind of like playing like up and down throughout the last couple tournaments, and I was like, all right, if he can start off bad, and like we could win this really easy in 2 maps and it won't even get cobble. But when I saw him get 3 kills on the pistol, I was like, shit, he's gonna actually have like a pretty good best of 3. This is gonna be a grind. Um, it turns out I think we grinded out like 7 or 8 rounds on our CT side. Honestly, it didn't feel like enough because when you're playing the best team in the world on Nuke, like
you want
need,
those
like,
double-digit rounds.
Yeah, you want like 11 or 12.
Right.
So we didn't feel too great going into the second half. Corey called a really good pistol. Turned out it worked despite me throwing a bad smoke. Yeah, I mean, and then from then on out, we just abused the fact that they didn't really play an op in the field, and we would just like work up on contact. So like we would like just walk up in the field until we saw someone, and then we just burst. And since they had no op, we would walk up pretty far. We would walk up to pretty much like the mini entrance with like 3 or 4 guys. So by the time that like that guy saw us, we would have like 4 guys like around like Big Ladder, or like 1 guy all the way down Secret and in the garage and shit like that. So we did a really good job of playing off of what they were giving us in that half, which is why we ended so well. Yeah.
Right. So then it goes on to DDoS 2. At this point, I, and maybe even you and your team, felt like this might be a 2-0 simply because you were able to conquer NIP on their map, Nuke, and then Dust 2 historically is a map that you've been able to beat NIP on. I guess technically you've beat Nuke in the past too, right, though, at an ESCA event, so like...
Yeah, but that was more of a fluke.
Right.
That was kind of fluky.
Definitely, but Dust 2 is a map that most people would expect that you have a good chance of beating NIP on. If you're going to beat them on any map, that would be probably the one that you'd be favored the most, except for maybe Cash or something. So yeah, I mean 16-14 once again, barely losing there. What went right, what went wrong here, do you think, on Dust 2?
That was a devastating match because we lost like both pistols in that match, and we won the 3rd round on our CT side, but we won it with like 1 guy living. They bought the 4th round. They won the 4th round. So then here we are at 3-1, completely broke on money. I think they go up like 5-1. We win a round, and they like I think they even reset us again. But then we ended the half with like 7 rounds. So I think we won a string of a shit ton of rounds towards the end of that half, like real gun rounds. I think if we had more money in the beginning of that half, we win that match. But instead, like our forced buy 3rd round kind of bit us in the ass because we were so low on money when they won the 4th round. I think the slow start on CT side kind of killed us as opposed to only getting, 7 on T side. But T side, we lost the pistol. We didn't win the ecos. So we're sitting at 0-3. So we're sitting at what, like 11-7 or something like that. And I mean, we do a pretty good job of coming back into the game, but we just couldn't do it. You know, I don't know. We're too far behind and they had too much money. And then we lost. I'm trying to think of what their money situation was like on that last round. I don't remember Dust 2 very much because Cobble is like all I've really thought about. So honestly, I don't really remember the specifics of our second half.
Right. So I think in most people's eyes, just as most people probably thought that you had a good chance of, like, I think this is how it went. Most people thought before the set started, NIP's probably going to win Nuke, and so it's going to come down to Dust 2 and map number 3, right? But then you guys win Nukes, and everyone thinks, oh, there's actually a decent chance that Cloud9 is going to 2-0 this series now because, you know, they can actually win on Dust 2. Not only that, but I'm sure there was that looming thought in the back of everyone's head on your team that if we don't win it on Dust 2, this is going to be really bad when we get to map 3 on Cobblestone. And then, so you get the Cobblestone, and once again, everyone thinks that, like, NIP's probably going to clear this one pretty easy. But once again, it's a 16-14 game. You guys actually almost figured out a way to win on a map that you hadn't played, like, at all. Talk to us about this last game, the tournament-ending game, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, so although we only played Cobble for, like, a half, we did watch, well, I guess I watched, I think, with, like, Corey and maybe someone else like kind of watched us, but I watched the NIP VOD on Cobble the night before, and I watched it again when we were boot camping. I think someone on the team was like, "Why are you watching that? If we play that map, we're donezo." And I was like watching Epsilon play NIP, and I was like, "How are they doing it? How are they just destroying him so well?" So we took like a little bit of what Epsilon did, and even like our T side pistol, that was like another round that I called. So in the Epsilon VOD, I noticed 4 solo spotted mid, and the other 4 guys were B. So what we did was we had everyone go A halls and literally just walk to the end of halls. And when we got to the end of halls, we all just rushed out and just bombarded forest. So kind of got fortunate on the pistol round, and it kind of got us like a couple more rounds on our T side, and it ended up coming down to that like final round, and that was just, I mean, we lost 3 ecos on our second half. Everyone remembers the Freiburg one where he's hiding at the cannons. There was one where it was 4v2 in our favor. I'm flanking B in the connector, and I spot 2 guys, and I shoot at one, and they instantly both hide. And then I think Jordan ran out B with the bomb, died with the bomb. It's then like Corey me shroud versus like 2 CZs or some shit, and Corey goes out, gets the bomb, shrouds it in the drop down room solo, like he actually dropped down, and then I'm in the connector. So Corey gets the bomb. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna go back A. I'm gonna go back A." So he's like falling back A, and like I think Get Right just like chased him or something like that and killed him. And the bomb was just like completely unretrievable. There's like 20 seconds left, and that was like another one of those like killer rounds.
Right.
So we lost like
Yeah.
2 killer ecos, like horrible.
There was another killer round that I recall, at least, where it was like you guys were hitting A, and I can't remember what the number situation was, but I felt like either you had an advantage or it was neutral, like maybe like 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or something. And I think it exists or something is hiding like in that little tower, and there's a smoke in front of it, but he can see over it, but like it was really hard to see him inside of it. So he gets a kill on somebody, and all that's left is Shroud now in like a one-on-one or something like that. But he has no idea where the frag came from. Like I think Exist killed Hiko or something, and no one knew like where it came from, because you can tell because Shroud's not checking anything. He's like, where did that come from? So he just tries to run to the site with like 10 seconds left and plant a bomb, and Exist just gets a free frag because Shroud has zero idea where he is. And that was like another like I think killer round that kind of stack up to the one you just talked about. Then of course the match ends with the round with Forrest like hiding in the back of the site forever with a mag, and just playing really patient Counter-Strike and just getting frags. I mean,
Yeah,
any
I mean,
comment
like,
on the ending there? Or?
I think if we played the map like 1, maybe 2 times before, we know that. So like I think I had the bomb. I ran into the site. We saw Forrest shadow on the stairs. We knew Forrest was on the stairs. However, it was me, Shroud, and Jordan in the site. Corey mid, Spencer flanking B. And what happens is we know he's there. We know there's guys on the balcony because we know he's the only guy at A, and like we hear the guys rotating balcony. So we throw flashes at the balcony. Like me and Jordan both throw flashes over there. Jordan tries to advance on him, gets 1 magged. So then it's me and Shroud just sitting there, like sitting in the middle of the site, and we can't peek Forest because we're caught in a crossfire from the windows, and we can't peek the windows because we're caught in a crossfire from Forest. So we're just stuck, and like a guy runs out the connector and kills both of us in the back with because Spencer tried to flank B, I think, and died. Guy got Spencer's AK. Guy runs out the connector, kills 2 of us in the back. I'm sorry.
No.
But yeah, so it ends up being like we're just screwed. Like we're just surrounded because of just not playing the map. And if we had played the map, we advance in that left field. I guarantee, like if we play the map before, we somehow communicate that I plant in the site alone, and Jordan Shroud should definitely be in that field, because if you're in that field, you can clear the back of the site, and you can also stop people from jumping out that window. So that's like kind of a requirement as far as roles go, looking in hindsight. We didn't know that at the time. We never ran into that scenario. It's hard to get mad at it. I mean, none of us were upset that we lost in Kabul, but it's obviously heartbreaking when you lose to 1 mag and 4 pistols. So,
Right. So I mean that was essentially the end of your tournament. I mean you placed top 8 once again, just like you had done in the previous event. You also have a top 4 finish from DreamHack winner to your belt as well. I guess from here, my question would just be, before we go on to like post ESL talk and reflecting on it, is how did like the rest of the tournament, did it go as you expected, like with Nip winning and things like that, or how did you think the tournament was going to go in comparison to how it actually went? I guess.
damn. So, shit. So honestly, like that tournament was so awesome to watch. Like that, I was like really emo that we lost. I was really happy that Nip won. I thought Virtus Pro was going to beat LDLC. They lost to LDLC. I thought LDLC was going to end up beating Nip, especially after that first map, but Nip ended up beating LDLC. I thought Dignitas was going to beat Fnatic. I mean, like, there's just so many awesome matches that I was spectating, I felt like, and like casting that it was definitely like a magical event as far as like Counter-Strike goes. It was everything that Counter-Strike would want, like in an event. And uh, I like the map pool in hindsight. However, talking with Valve, they have plans to like edit these maps. So that's something that people should look at moving forward is like these aren't the polished versions of the map that you'll probably see at the next major. However, you probably will see these maps at the next major.
So my question is then, so in hindsight of that, and then talking about what you just said about the tournament and how you think, you know, it was everything you could want. I mean, most people heavily criticize. I think the vast majority of people that I've like heard from through articles and through interviews and things is like most people accepted the fact that Overpass could be a pretty decent competitive map with some tweaks. Like I think people mentioned that the rotations just seemed a little bit too quick for CTs to get to the A site, things of that nature, things that could be tweaked to fix Overpass. But it seemed like almost everyone had a consensus that Cobblestone, just like its brother of the past, is too CT-sided and too big and all that good stuff. So reflecting on it now, are these probably some of the same conclusions that would be drawn, or do you think that there's something to these maps for a future tournament that you would actually enjoy seeing them?
Sure. So Overpass at this point is ready for competitive play. That being said, I've only scrimmed it once in a competitive environment, but I can tell by watching it, especially like the Europeans that know how to play the map, it runs like a competitive map. Like it plays like a competitive map. The only thing that I think should be edited, and I spoke with Valve about it, and I think that they're pretty much in agreement with it, so I'm expecting to see the change, is those two sandbags that CTs just jump over to spot that area. So they proposed to me like ideas to fix that, and I kind of agreed with them. They're either going to remove one or make them spammable. So like the area like where people jump over to have there be like a plank of wood, so that way if someone jump spots you, you can spam them. Because right now what happens is like the CTs are just jumping over the wall, so they know like where the Ts are kind of going at that point in the round based on what they see. So they can kind of stack towards A, stack towards B, and then they smoke off the tunnels and things like that. Cobble, on the other hand, I think they need a lot of changes to it. However, it looked like it ran fine. I mean, all the Cobble matches played out really well. The only thing that I have wrong with Cobble is the distance from like T-spawn to mid, B tunnels to mid, and like A, just in general, just like the distance as like if you're like a T and A halls, if you want to run back to B, it takes you forever to get to that far. And also, the other problem I have is the area behind the B site. It's completely not functional at all. It's way too big. There's too many hiding spots back there. So like you're planning in like the middle of the map, and there's another bomb site behind you where like there's like 80 other hiding spots. So that's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Like I just saw people like hiding back there. That's what like Nip was using against us. That's what Epsilon used when they played the map. Like they just have like autos and stuff like hide back there. awper even used it. Like Daze would hide on that balcony with like a silenced Colt. That's like a huge problem in my eyes. Like I don't think there should be that much area that you have to clear behind the site before you plant, especially when you can get opt in the back the whole time from the connector or the drop down area. So like there's too much to focus on when you're heading towards the B bomb site. So that needs to be kind of fixed up, and Valve agreed. With that being said, I don't know if you plan on like kind of converging into like a different topic of like ESCA map pool and SIVO map pool, but I'd like to head down that route.
We're going to head down that right after this. I guess I want to talk more about Cobble, though, just a little bit, because I kind of want to play devil's advocate a bit, because you're kind of like, I wouldn't say like you're heavily in favor of the map, but you're like optimistic that it can be improved and changed and then therefore be used. But and like some of your reasoning behind that is you've named some things that could be changed that would fix it, first of all. And then second of all, you've kind of talked about how it seemed to work out okay in the tournament, like when you watched it played and stuff like that. But my 2 points would be this, and they're going to turn the questions for you to respond to, is one, how much of the fact that it played out well in the tournament was because like the teams picked it because they prepared a lot on it, when therefore it wasn't necessarily the map that was good, but the two teams playing on it were good. And so therefore, like any map, if the two teams are really good and prep on it, they're going to at least figure something out and make it worth watching and worth playing. And then the other point would be, is you're naming all these changes, and at what point is it that you have to make so many changes to a map to make it viable that it almost makes it not even worth it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think the teams were really prepared on Cobble. I could tell watching like awper, Epsilon, Nit play that like it wasn't like their 5th time playing the map. It was like their probably 20th time playing the map, and that's a lot considering they only had about a month to play it. I mean, maybe not awper because they were only boot camping for like 2-3 weeks. They probably played it still a good 10 times. Like they knew that they were going to play that map, and I know they played it quite a bit because I would look at my friends and see that they were playing Cobble. They played against like Titan and stuff like that. They also had really awesome ways of like taking control of mid, like where they would like smoke off the wall. And I actually saw the picture on freaking on the CS:GO Reddit today. I don't know if I can even find that. Like I don't know. I don't think I can. Yeah, it's not on the front page. But so like they would smoke off the far door, and then they would like clear the stairs while they were clearing the halls. They would like converge on the halls from those 2 ways, like and like pinch that area. So if a guy did play close halls, he would just die. Which is like a really cool idea. The only problem with that idea is by the time you're done with all that, you have no time. And I think that can be fixed. Like, I really do. I think CSGO needs a map like Cobble that's open. So I think that with a couple edits, Cobble can be completely viable for competitive play. And it also adds a different dynamic that we don't see on a lot of the other maps. Like, it plays way differently than Overpass does, than Nuke does. If anything, I think Overpass and Nuke play the most similar because it's a lot of close quarters, and then there is like a large field on one side of the map that a lot of teams use. So like, I can compare Nuke more with Overpass. I can compare Cobble more with like Dust 2 or something. Like
Right.
a more open map. And I think the way CSGO is right now is there's a lot of clustered maps. So I could appreciate an open map like Cobble. There just needs to be edits. I would rather them add like another entrance to the back of the bomb site B too. Like maybe instead of like removing that area behind B, they could add an entrance back there like Forge has. That would be cool. Like they could do a lot of stuff to like make the map more competitively viable.
Right.
And they will. They will.
But is it worth it if you have to make that many changes rather than just picking up like another map that has been tested in competitive play and most people agree is viable for competitive play, like say DE Season or something like that, rather than like a map like Cobble, which has a really bad history of being competitively viable?
So like maybe Valve will take Season, but they'll edit the map and make it their own. Like Valve isn't gonna add in Brute's Tuscan to like the lineup.
Well, they did it to Cash. They did the remake of Cash, and FM Pone's already working on the remake of Season. And it's the same. It's the same deal. Then.
Yeah, exactly. They'll remake it though. Like it's not gonna be the same season that you see right now. It's gonna be Valve's own season.
It'll be FM Pone's new season, the one he's working on, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like he'll work with Valve to make a map. Similarly, they need someone to make Tuscan. I've talked to them about this. So they need Brute to release Tuscan. Then they need permission from Brute to take that map and edit it to make it their own. So like all of that shit needs to happen in order for Tuscan to be used. Everyone wants Tuscan to be used. Valve is kind of okay with Tuscan being used, but they're not going to add in these maps that aren't in the matchmaking pool because the competitive scene only accounts for like, God, I can't remember this number, but it was like some minuscule percent. I think it's even less than 5%, where it's like.
But what does that matter? Because you are the competitive people playing the tournament, so shouldn't it be suited towards you guys rather than the matchmaking pool? Because at the end of the day, that's what's happening. That's the reality.
No, it really shouldn't though, because 400,000 people don't play this game competitively, and that's how many people tune into the Twitch stream. They want to tune into something that they can understand and they can relate to.
Point.
So if they're seeing a map that they've never seen before, they don't want to see that. They want to see a map that they can log on to CS and queue up, like and play. And I understand Valve's point with that, to be honest.
I think maybe people overlook that a lot then. Because until you said it, I wouldn't have even thought of it that way, maybe. It's like so simple, like to think of it that way and realize that that's how it should be. So that's kind of cool, actually. So with that being said, though, the timeliness of when they announced, I think, still could be subject to criticism. Though, I mean, they only gave like a month's notice, which means that none of the leagues in their right mind can put those maps into rotation at that point because it's just such short notice. Like ESEA, for example, already had their season started by the time that they announced that those maps would be used in the major. So, I mean, going forward, leagues can maybe think about adding in these maps into a rotation, but prior to the event, they really didn't have time to. Like, SIVO was already underway. ESEA was as well. I guess, like, Case King could add them in because that's, like, a running event that could maybe add new maps to it. But, so, because you wanted to get to this point, right? Like, you wanted to talk about map rotations for leagues. So, what is your thought going forward, how this should work, do you think?
So I actually am like actively talking with like ESEA, or not yet, but I talked to a few about it, told me to email Mark. I've been like writing a proposal to ESEA about what should happen. Because right now NACS is in a really bad position for the next major and probably even the next major after that. If the next major is DreamHack winner, so that means that all of North America again is not going to be able to play 2 out of 7 maps that are in the major pool. Again, that puts us at a massive disadvantage. Like, I can't state how much of a disadvantage it is that you can't even play 2 out of 7 out of the maps in the pool because you just have no practice on them. They're not even on the ESA servers, which everyone plays on, and there's no way to play it. So my proposal to ESA and SIVO is to use the 7 maps of the major. There's 8 weeks in a season, so you have 7 maps. You then have 1 week left over. You can play season once, and you can play whatever you want one more time. I don't give a shit. If you want to play like season once, train once for that 8th week, you can. If you want to play train both times, you can. If you play season both times, you can. Because I think season's a good map. I think train's a good map, but Valve will probably never go back to using train based on what I've talked to them about like at the last majors. Train's done.
Really?
So
Because I know people were rumoring around that they were like doing changes to it and stuff like that because they saw like
no.
some leaked screenshots. It's not happening. It's done. It's donezo.
I mean, from what I talked to them about, they're done. Like, they don't, like, that's not on their agenda right now. It's like fixed train. Like, what's on their agenda is to fix the maps that have been released by them recently and kind of update them for the next major. They do seem open to accepting Tuscan.
And season maybe.
And season.
So would that mean a 9-map pool, or is it still 7 maps and some maps are going to get taken out? Like, how would they rectify that?
I mean, I have no idea what they're planning on doing. I think 9 maps would be a little bit crazy.
I think
they've already said that that's like not going to happen. Maybe they'll have like rotating maps throughout the majors or something. I don't know, but from what I've gathered from them is like they had a lot of hate about Cobble. They're going to probably fix it. If not, they're going to move on to another map for Cobble. Overpass seemed to be liked a little bit, so they're probably going to keep that in there. But still, we will have no practice again on Overpass going into the next major.
So do you mean like next season of ESEA, next season of SIVO, we need to add those maps in? Is that what you're proposing?
That's what I am proposing, like in my initial statement that I just said, is like the 7 weeks of the major, and then there's 2 remaining like matches that need to be played. If you want to do like whatever ESA wants, like if they want to release DE Light and play it like one of those matches, they can. If they want to play DE Season, they can. Like if they want to play DE Train, they can. I don't care. But we need to play the 7 maps that are in the major for sure. And then the 8th week can be whatever you want. Right now for this season, because that's the problem right now, is that this season of ESA and this season of SIVO will end exactly when the next major happens. So again, like there needs to be edits to this season. And I'm looking at the ESA schedule right now, and there's 2 extra matches on Dust 2 at the end. We've already played 2 matches of Dust 2 this season. Why we have to play Dust 2 again for 2 more matches, 4 total matches out of 16, 25% of our matches are on Dust 2. 25%. That doesn't even make sense to me. So in addition to that, we play Train 3 out of 16 times. So Train isn't even a map that's going to be used anymore, probably. It's literally going to fall off the face of the earth, I feel like, in probably
so
like
you're basically proposing that Dust 2 and Train should be removed from the tail end of the season and be replaced with like Cobblestone Overpass in its current iteration, even though knowing it'll be edited probably before the next major?
Yeah, I would say use Cobble like probably as the last map, because if Cobble does get edited, then hopefully it's before September 22nd. I mean, that gives Valve a long time. And if Craig or whoever emails Valve, they're really receptive to like emails and stuff like that from like from like people. Like they're receptive to emails from like us as players. So I know they'd be receptive to emails from like ESEA. So I don't know. There definitely needs to be something done here. Like the fact that we're playing Train 3 times and Dust 2 4 times, that's literally 7 out of 16 maps on, or 7 out of 16 matches are on those 2 maps. That's kind of crazy. Like,
I don't disagree with you. Like, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm the guy that's been trying to talk about doing best of threes instead of weak play, but that's never getting anywhere apparently for ESA invite and stuff like that. I'm not, of course, that's not originally my thought. Other people have come up with that as well, like Frost and Steel, and other people have always asked for best of threes in league play. So that's it. But so we've harped about maps a lot, but let's harp about the other thing that people criticize from this event, which is the veto system. What are your thoughts on this now?
The veto system in the group play is acceptable because it forces you to be good on 3 maps. Well, I guess like 5 maps, because you technically shouldn't know what the other team's going to veto. However, like if you're playing like a Nip, you're playing a Titan, you're playing like a Virtus Pro, you're playing a Fnatic, you have a pretty goddamn good idea what they're going to veto. Like we knew going into the veto system exactly what Titan and Dignitas were going to veto. So we knew the 3 maps we had to be really good at against both of them, and we got really good on them. When it comes down to the bracket play, that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem, because then each team only eliminates 1 map, so that means you have to be good on the other 5, and it's hard to know which 1 map the other team is going to be good at, so that basically means you have to be good at 6 maps. And when you can't play 2 of them, and then you're stuck because you don't want to play Virtus Pro on Mirage, you don't want to play NIP on Nuke, and you don't want to play like Titan on like their best map. Like their probably best map is like Mirage or like Inferno or something like that. Like those are 3 maps that you don't want to play those 3 teams on. But in this veto system, we're stuck playing all 3 of those teams on those maps because we have to eliminate one of those 2 maps. So like it's completely unfair that you have to play the best team on the world on their best map in the world. We got lucky that we beat Nip on Nuke the way we did. I mean, like, it's lame.
So
like,
was the solution then, like, because my proposal would just be, like, obviously in best of 1 group play, it's going to be randomized with the 3 maps left. So in bracket play, why not just, like, ban, pick, like do that whole system, but everyone gets an extra ban, so there's no randomized 3rd map. The 3rd map is just a map that doesn't get picked by the 2 teams for their map selection. Would that be like the best compromise?
Yeah, I would say that'd probably be like a pretty good compromise. And I understand what Valve was trying to do. They're trying to make it so that way they don't have Inferno Strike as their majors, like, because everyone wants to play Inferno because they feel like they can't get randomed on Inferno. Like they can't have a horrible half on Inferno and go home 16-1. Like, so no one wants to go home playing Nuke like the way Titan did, where they start T-side against Dignitas and they get absolutely slaughtered, nothing works, and they go home like 16-1, and they know Dignitas isn't 16 times better than them. Like that's just it's not how you want to go home. Like when you practice for 3 months for a tournament.
Yeah, I think it should be ban, pick, ban, pick, and then done. Dunzo. 3rd maps left.
Yeah.
That would be pretty sick. Like alternating ban picks until... Yeah. So basically no randomized map in bracket play. That would be my... Because you're going to get it in group play, whatever. I think that stinks because I think group play should be best of 3 as well, but I guess you don't have time for that. I don't know. There's all kinds of things. Like, if you could just make the tournament last an extra day and make group play best of 3 as well, I think it would just be way more cool. Like, what are your thoughts on that best of 1 group play? How do you feel about it?
I mean, obviously everyone would want to play best of 3 group play. However, that's not really an option with the way like venues work. Like, the tournaments would drag on so long, and I mean, you have to realize like from a venue perspective that even like something like ESEA, we're like hustling to get out the doors. Like Craig is like pushing us all to ready up. Like it works on like a 10 times larger scale when you're at something like Gamescom where there's 400,000 people there that like have other shit to do. The stage isn't for only CS. So like I understand like from a tournament point of view why it has to be best of 1. If it can be best of 3, definitely go for it, though.
I don't know. I guess like the international is able to pull it off. Like they're able to do it for so many days and drag it on for so long and like get best of 3 all the way through. And I think that that's not really practical for like every single CS:GO tournament. But if this is like your premier tournament, like the major, like the one that everyone's paying attention to, I think then at that point, a tournament of that magnitude, maybe you could logistically figure a way to work it out. And maybe that will happen. Maybe, you know, we have these 3 or 4 majors throughout the year, and then we end the year with this capstone, really huge event for like $1 million that does drag out like international style and does have best of 3 all the way through. You know what I mean? So maybe that's the end result that we should be looking for. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and I think it, honestly, like looking back, it probably was possible. I mean, like our tournament area was open like all day, and every team, we did groups over 2 days as opposed to like one, and we played 1 match each day, which is kind of lame. I mean, we played 1 on stage though, which is kind of weird.
So that tells me it was probably logistically possible to do best of 3 all the way through, running a 4, because it was 4-day tournament, right? It was 2 days of group play, then 1 day of quarterfinals, and then the semifinals and grand finals on the last day. So 4 days. So yeah, maybe you don't have it all on stage, but you could still make best of 3 group play work when you have 4 days to work with.
Yeah, no, I agree. Looking back, I mean, they had a tournament area which eventually got turned into like a casting area once all the matches were on stage, and I think probably it could have been played in that area. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know. I don't know the reasoning. Makes no sense to me actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, sorry, that was my biggest beef. Like, most people were complaining about maps and vetoes, and I was too, but that was my biggest beef, was like, if you have 4 days, you can make a best of 3 work all the way through. Anyway, so we're going to get to the tail end of the interview now. We only have a couple more questions left. I know this is going on pretty long, but I guess my last question one of my last questions is, reflecting back now on the event, obviously, like, everyone kind of knew that you know, Hiko and Semphis were going to perform at a certain level, and they performed their expectations. And I guess most people would say that nothing maybe underperformed just a little bit in a couple of maps, but I mean, that happens. I don't know. I think the biggest storylines that come out of this is, and this is what I want you to respond to, is, I mean, Shroud coming off this event. I mean, do you feel like he's finally proven himself and silenced all the hate and speculation in the community? Has he proven himself to be the next like rising star of North America, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's like kind of ridiculous that people like, it's funny because when we play people before the event, like people would never talk shit to us, like us 4. However, I mean, they would always find ways to just kind of like say like little comments towards Shroud, and it stopped. Like I'm so glad that he doesn't have to deal with that anymore, because if people met Shroud and talked to Shroud, I mean, he streams a lot, so you know how like down to earth he is, how nice of a person he is, and he's not gonna like cheat you or anything like that. And you know from his personality that he's not gonna crumble at a LAN tournament, because quite frankly, he's a level person, and he's not gonna get too hype, and he's not gonna get too down. So that kind of personality is really good to have as far as like where he is in his ES career.
So what do you think the future holds for him? Like, where is his potential at? Like, where do you see him going forward, I guess you could say?
I mean, like he's probably like already like top 5 or so NA. I mean, like him, Jordan, and Spencer are just like insane. Some of the stuff that like I witnessed them do on like a day-to-day basis, like their spray controls, which is like awesome, because now we have like 3 excellent sprayers on our team, which is like more where CS is as a game as opposed to tapping. As cool as it is to watch Scream one tap everyone in the head, I think it's more viable to have excellent sprayers on your team. So having that on our team is excellent. But at the same time, it's like Shroud on a team with Hiko and nothing is like Dennis Rodman on a team with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Like, yeah, I mean, he's not going to get that much accolades for his individual performances, because he's going to have to share it with like 2 of the other best players in North America. And I mean, Semphis also has like his games where he pops off and drops like 40 kills. I mean, this season he's played absolutely out of his mind while strat calling and opping. So like, it's a lot different than when he was on Manajuma for him, because he's going to have to share that with people, and his personality is fine with that. He just wants to win. So it's a good fit for him.
So I think other people would look at this tournament as well, and this is not to take a stab at you or anything, but you've always been criticized, in the sense that you were always an amazing in-game leader and you were always leading your team to victory, but people would always talk about like how you can make really big plays with the op, but sometimes like your KD ratio was like a bit inconsistent at times, which you can either find that credible or not. That's just what people have said. But people will look at this event for sure and be like, wow, Sean was fragging pretty hard. He's back. Like, he's doing really, really good. Is there something to all this that I've said? Like, do you feel like you fragged better at this event than you've done in the past? And if so, why do you think that's the case? And going forward, will it continue?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I played pretty good at this event. I finally played like my game, you know, like I don't think I was ever meant to be like that kind of guy that just has an op all the time. Whenever I have an op, like I'm fine with it. I love opping, but it's also like a weird situation where you're really impactful on gun rounds. You get no eco frags, you get no credit at the end of the match because you have no kills, kind of thing. Like the oppers that end up with tons of kills are the ones that are hyper aggressive and go for eco kills and stuff like that. So yeah, I did have like really bad KDs like at tournaments when I was opping. So I do enjoy opping, but there's also times where I hate opping. Like I hate opping T-side dust 2. There's like not many kills to be had, I feel like. There's like train where I didn't like opping at all. So I don't know. Like I'm much more suited to be like a rifler, I feel like, in this game. Just because I do make kind of interesting plays and like use my surroundings better when I rifle as opposed to opping. And when I'm opping, I feel like I'm in that like 1.6 box where I'm like stuck and I have to play like stagnant CS. So I think I play better rifling, and that's quite frankly why I put up the numbers that I did. And I mean, the high sense probably helped a little bit too. I feel like I'm a better high sense player.
So, based on all this discussion we've had about Shroud and yourself and your other teammates that we've had over just the past couple of minutes throughout the interview, it almost seems like one could come away from this interview thinking that all the pieces are in place to the puzzle of Cloud9. It seems like you guys are now built at a pretty good point to where going forward you could be like a really successful team down the line. So, do you agree with this? What do you think the outlook for your team is going forward?
I think our outlook is pretty good, and I think we're going to use today actually to like reflect a lot on the tournament and the rounds that we lost, like some of the key rounds, and what we could have done like to like knock down some of the walls we hit in some of the matches, like CT side Dust 2 against Titan or T side Mirage against Dignitas. Like we hit walls throughout the tournament where we became like stagnant as a team, and we got kind of caught in like these really bad grooves. So we're gonna like look to improve on that. We also need to like improve on our, I guess, gameplay too a little bit. I think on our T side we need to be a little bit more, I guess dynamic again. I have to use that word, dynamic again. But like we have to have like a scrimmy style, but we also have to be able to like bust out and execute randomly. And I feel like at this last event we weren't able to like bust out and execute properly on like some maps where it probably would have helped, where if like we did like an execute on like B against Dignitas on Mirage, maybe we would have like grimed out a round like in B, like somewhere in the middle of that half. We did an execute on A, we did like an execute from mid, like a full out A split where we smoke off jungle from like over the wall, but we never really had any of that. So we need to add that element to our game to improve. We need to be, honestly, like some guy posted an article on hltv.org and he did a really good job of summarizing some of our problems. I don't really remember where it is, but he wrote like a blog and he did a really good job of summarizing some of our problems. He was completely wrong in other aspects, I felt like. But we do need to work on being a little bit more team oriented on our CT sides too, so that we're not playing individually and getting like picked off and stuff like that. So
Right. So we talked a lot about like the in-game leader transfer role between you and Semphis, and we talked about like your perspective of opping and like being more geared towards rifling in this game. But how do you feel about Semphis as an opper?
He's really good at it because he's like way more aggressive than I am. Like when it comes to opping, like he makes some pretty BDPs. Like when he's opping, it's awesome to see. Like we all laugh about it too. Like he laughs about it, we laugh about it. Like it's hilarious to see like some guy like jumping around with like an op and like looking for frags. It's like
So
that's
do
not
you
something I would do.
so do you feel like he's just as capable as you were, or just as capable as like some of the other top oppers in the world? Like,
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Semphis like has the knowledge to like do like any role in the game. Like that's the thing. Like he's been playing so long for so much that he could be an awper, he could be a role player, he could be a lurker, he could be the entry fragger, and he has throughout the time that I played with him like over the last like almost 7 years probably now. I don't even know how long we've been playing together.
I think it was just weird to spectators because none of us had ever seen him really touch a sniper like at all, like back
Yeah.
when you were sniping, and so he just picked it up out of nowhere and was doing well with it. So I was just kind of curious, like, do you think he can consistently keep doing that and maybe even improve and be like an elite opper or something?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And like so right now he's really good as far as like positioning and like aiming with it and like hitting shots. But like once he gets down like his like slide peaks and like just ways that you peak places with ops that you get advantages on people, like he's gonna really become like a next level opper because his aim is like dead on point right now with it.
Right on. So I have two questions left. One of them is, what are like the future plans for Cloud9? Like what, ESEA LAN, SEVO LAN? You know, anything else on the horizon for you guys that you think you'll be attending or wanting to do?
I mean, we got an invite to ESWC. However, we're kind of at a point where we're seeing what the possibilities are with that.
So is that because mobility might not be going anymore? Is that why?
I don't think so. I think they are going. I don't know. They reached out to us though. I know that. And then
Hmm.
I don't know if we're confirming that yet, like that we're going.
So
So
that would either mean there's 3 and 8 teams
okay.
going, or that would mean that iBuyPower Mobility has backed out. That's like really the only logical explanation for why they would approach you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit with management. We're not sure if we want to go and to attend or if management even wants us to go like fresh off that land that we just had. So we're still in discussion about it. I mean, it's honestly we were just approached like a couple days ago, so it's kind of fresh in our minds. Also, I mean, we have SEVO LAN, ESA LAN, DreamHack probably. So it's like 3 lands coming up, and then I can't think of another one, but it's gonna be kind of crazy if we go to ESWC because it's like 4 lands like back to back to back to back to back. You know, like we don't want that. We don't want to get like burned out as far as like traveling all over the place, getting like sick because I'm still sick from this Germany trip. Like, um, I got sick on the way to Germany, and I'm still sick at this very moment. I got like re-sick when I landed back here, so Jesus, it's bad. All that recirculated air.
All right, so this is my last question before I let you do like final comments and shouts before I let you go, because this has already lasted longer than I expected, to be honest. I don't know if you've gotten to see it yet, but Lurpus released an article today called Quick CSGO Improvements. And I always do this at the end of almost every interview I do with pro players. I always ask, like, what do they think about the current state of the game? What do they think needs to be changed? I think most people are in agreement that the CZ still needs more nerfing, though there is argument about how you would do it. There's also discussion about, like, nerfing the scout a bit, like buffing diffuse kits, like making it less expensive. Some other things to improve the game is obviously there's still smoke bugs that need to be fixed. People are always constantly asking for like 128 tick matchmaking and some, you know, mats being added to the matchmaking pool. What do you think needs to be fixed still with CS:GO?
I mean, obviously the CZ I think is like kind of a joke as far as like CS, and that's coming from a team that probably like wins more CZ rounds than like the average pro team. Like, I think the CZ needs to be buffed for sure. I think the
You mean
scout's
nerfed?
okay. I mean, nerfed. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Didn't mean to say
let's
buffed.
make it
Yeah.
more powerful,
Yeah.
guys.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
woo!
Let's
Put a scope on
give
it.
it like 20 bullets.
And the
I mean,
scope, yeah.
I think the 5.7 needs to nerf. Like, I think all the pistols are kind of like ridiculous. I'm okay with like the P250 now at this point though, since no one uses it. But I used to think it was like ridiculous before the CZ. Like, I think the fact that like there's all these pistols that can literally get like 3Ks if you just kind of get lucky. I mean, not even lucky. Like, I've seen 5.7 rounds where I think I saw the statistic where it's like 93% armor percent penetration or something like that. So like it's literally as if you're hitting someone without armor. It's pretty ridiculous. Like, you get like 4 body shots at the 5.7 and you have 20 bullets. So like you see triple kills all the time with no headshots. It's pretty dumb. So I think both of those pistols need a nerf. I don't think Valve is going to agree with the 5.7 though. The CZ definitely. The diffuse kit, as you said, like I've been making this joke forever now. Like I remember when TCK was on the team, you used to be like, "Sorry guys, I can't afford a kit. I only have 10K." Like, like everyone's been making jokes about the goddamn diffuse kit for like years now in
Since the
CS:GO.
game came out
I
in
don't
beta.
understand how it's still at $400. Like I don't understand. Like it seems like such an easy fix. Why is it so expensive? Why is it so expensive? I don't get it. The scout I think is fine. I really do.
Of
Like
course you do.
no. Like if you look back at that tournament, there wasn't that many rounds where the scout played a huge part in the round. Like there really wasn't. Like there's the round versus Dignitas, our eco against Nip on Dust 2. I scout headshotted the guy mid, but like I think I saw one more on like overpass that Fnatic got. There may have been more, but what the problem is with a scout is that you body shot some guy, and then you have three CZs around the map, like just preying on a guy with like 10 HP. Like that guy isn't even a factor on the map anymore because when he has 10 HP and there's CZs, like he's just as good as dead. So the problem is the CZ, not the scout.
I
Uh,
almost felt like the biggest complaint about the scout was that it was fine the way that it was. They didn't need to like buff the price and make it
yeah,
easier to get. I think that
yeah,
was the biggest thing.
that's true. That's true. Maybe if they made it like maybe like around like 1850 or something. Just make it so that way you need like a couple kills on pistol round in order to be able to like afford it. I guess like 2000 was fine, huh? Like if you got
Yeah, it
like two
was.
kills.
I think it was fine the way that it was. I don't think it needed to be like
Yeah.
you were still using it yourself even before the price got like.
Yeah, I was always using it like when it
Yeah.
was 2000, and then when it was like 1700, it's like, oh, this is a steal. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm like bargain shopping right now,
That's what
picking
I'm
stuff
saying.
off the shelves.
That's what I'm saying. So I think it could have just been left alone. I think at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But continue. What else do you feel needs to be changed? Anything else off the top of the noggin?
Um, I feel like the nades still like do that weird thing where sometimes you get hit with them and it's like you have no armor. I don't understand it. Like you'll get hit by a nade and does like 96 damage. And you're like, what the fuck happened just now? I have armor. Like how did that do so much damage to me? So I think that like that's a fix that people have been complaining about too for like a long time and still hasn't been fixed.
How do you
There's
feel
that.
about the backpack reload like type thing?
I don't really think it's a problem. I think like little quirks like that in the game that like pro players know how to abuse are pretty cool. So like when you play the game a lot, you learn like little quirks, like kind of like jumping, scouting, and stuff like that, and like the slide spray. Like I think the slide spray, like I by the way, Valve didn't even know about the slide spray. I told them about it. I was like, what do you guys think about the slide spray? Like how it's like dead accurate. They're like, what do you mean it's dead accurate? It's not accurate. So I like hopped in a server and showed them at the LAN, and like, and apparently they didn't know either that like. So I think this needs to be fixed too. So you know how like you can crouch, slide, and spray your Colt? Well, you can also just slide around with the op while crouched and shoot dead accurate bullets. So that I think kind of needs to be fixed for the op. Like I'm okay with the spraying, but like people shouldn't be able to like move around and op you. Like that's kind of lame in my opinion. Um, I don't like how sometimes when you're scope with the op, you get like this weird like acceleration boost when you're like crouching. So that needs to be fixed. Like when you if you're like double scoped while crouching, like holding a strafe key, you'll hit this weird like area where you like move twice as fast and then you slow down, and then you move twice as fast and you slow down. So I don't know.
People are
There's a
so confused what we're talking about. So slide spraying is when you crouch and you strafe to one side and spray all at the same time. That's like slide spraying. And it's still really accurate. Like crab walking and spraying, yeah, but from side to side, not forward and backwards. And a backpack reload is whenever, like before your guy puts the clip back into the gun, you switch to like your pistol or something, and you can get a shot off with your pistol while your gun finishes the reload. Like if you're in a gunfight and you like got a reload in the middle of it, you can like put the clip back into the gun right before it does. You like kind of like you did in Halo. If anyone ever played Halo backpack reloading, it's like the same concept, except it's not as big of a difference as it was in Halo. Halo was like nuts doing a backpack reload, and CS it's not as much of a time factor. So that's the terms we're speaking of. Sorry to confuse some of you.
Yeah, so what else needs to be? I think some of like the acceleration and like the peaking is kind of crazy still in this game. Like the way that people can like accelerate like 0 to 60 like instantly and like peak you so fast. It makes like jiggle peaking like pretty crazy if it's known if you can do it effectively, like the way like Navi, Zeus can. Like there's a couple players that do it like really effectively using the speed of the game. And I mean also like online play can get kind of crazy too with how the acceleration is. Other than that, What else? And I mean, the smokes are still kind of crazy. I don't know. Like, I feel like they can't really get a perfect smoke.
Yeah.
I liked all the one ways, to be honest. I think the one way smokes that added like a different kind of perspective to the game that like helped pros out, like separate. It separates the people that play a lot from the people that play a medium amount from the people that play a little. And I think that that's like important to have in a game. So I kind of liked the one way smoke era of CS:GO.
Yeah, I can understand that. You can check out the rest of that article over at HLTV. Some of the other things are like aesthetic things, like being able to purchase sprays, kind of like you purchase skins, and like different things like that. Also, some good suggestions over there from Lurpus. But without further ado, man, I mean, I think we've pretty much hit all the points that I want to talk about. Unless there was something you wanted to mention. Otherwise, do you have any last comments or shouts before I let you go?
No, I just want to thank Cloud9 still, and again for being such an awesome sponsor, sending us there at such short notice for a boot camp. Really, all the Logitech guys for treating us well. Kind of, that I mean, they helped organize the whole boot camp too. We've been in pretty much direct talks with Logitech. We hung out at their booth and did like all kind of stuff for them. I mean, everything's really just been an awesome experience since we've joined Cloud9. Like they've been so receptive to us. Really heard all of our concerns, addressed them. So I want to thank them, and more importantly, our fans who have really like stepped up big, especially ever since the tournament. I love like kind of like waking up in the morning and seeing like all the Cloud9 threads on the Reddit and just all the love for us. Like even when we got absolutely dominated by Lunatic, like the hate was pretty low. Like I was surprised. I was really surprised.
Yeah,
like,
you guys are just throwing matches,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. That
Them
was a
skins, though.
horrible match. Like I've never been more upset in like the team and our performance than like after that match. I was just like, what happened? Jordan and I talked for like hours after that match. Like I think Corey started to stream up, Shroud started to stream up, Spencer went to bed, and me and Jordan were just like sitting here like in mumble for like 5 hours. Like what in God's name just happened? Like, and how does that never happen ever again? Like people don't understand how hard teams take losses. Like that's why I really don't think any team at the pro level has thrown ever, and that includes awper in that netcode match. Like it sucks losing. Like no one wants to lose. Like if it's the worst feeling ever. I don't know.
No one wants to lose unless they want to lose, Sean.
I guess.
All right, I'm done. I'm not saying anything more about that. Not going to touch that drama with anything. I'm going to let that one go. But anyway, so, I mean, before I let you go, any other sponsors you need to shout or anything like that? Any formal things you got to do before I let you go? Are you good?
No, I mean just Logitech, HyperX, all the people of Cloud9, everyone that makes this possible. Thanks a lot.
All right, Sean. Well, I appreciate you coming in and going through another marathon interview. Have a good one and good luck in the future, man.
Thanks. Peace, guys.
Peace.